My name is Rassmussen. I'm a hunter, I'm a brother, I'm an outdoorsman, I'm a son, I love to snowmobile and water ski and do so many great things, and I never thought I would add I'm gay to that category. I grew up in Spanish Fork, Utah, down in a little area in Utah County, which is a heavily Mormon populated area. Grew up very active, involved in the LDS Church, and I loved my childhood and felt so lucky to live where I lived. I knew I felt privileged and felt like I was in a safe, good place, that I had a lot of great friends and a lot of great memories, and I could easily make it up the canyon, or we could, go to a concert or show, and I felt like I was always in a good place. I got to be in a children's choir when I was a little kid, when I was in about 12, 13 years old, and every summer for 2 weeks we would travel across the country. It was a children's choir that was very LDS, and they sang songs about the restoration of the gospel. And it was a beautiful opportunity for me to be able to grow a testimony, grow experience in traveling around the country, meeting new people, seeing places that I had only seen in postcards or on TV. And I felt like I was very lucky and felt very blessed to have that opportunity as I did growing up. I'm the fourth of 5 kids in my family. I have a younger brother, an older brother, and 2 older sisters. We were all very, very close. My mom and dad had 5 kids from the birth of the first kid to the birth of the last kid in 7.5 years. So we fought like crazy when we were young, but I didn't know if I'd ever believe my parents that once when I got older that my siblings would become my best friends, and that's definitely true. I'm really grateful and appreciative for them. Growing up, we all lived in a little house, 5 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. We were pretty open and had a lot of pretty closeness, and all shared rooms, and it was great and able to do so much. I remember coming home one day off the bus and getting a phone call from my dad saying that my mom had been in a serious car accident, and how that changed my life and as I saw people experience pain and suffering. And I realized too how lucky we were to be members of the church because of the way that the community and the people were able to bring meals into our family and be able to help us in that Thanksgiving and that Christmas, because it happened right before Thanksgiving in 1997. And I realized, and I started to see how my life would change, and as I started to see how people suffer and have pain, and how people experience hardships in their life. My dad is a great construction hard worker, worked construction his whole life. And I knew at a very young age I would watch him struggle with knee pain. And as I gotten older, he's had 3 total knee replacements, and he's had his back fused 3 times, and has had many other surgeries. And I watched as my parents have these physical struggles and these trials that they go through. And I knew my family is a very work ethic family, and we serve each other by working and doing what we need to do. And we value hard work. And I knew that I was just always a little bit different. I didn't know what it meant, because I felt like that's just how must everybody be. That, that everybody must have these same feelings, and, and that's what they just are, is they're just feelings. But I knew the plan of the restoration. I knew that the plan that we needed to be married to women, and women to be married to men, and I knew that what the church taught, how people are supposed to be happy, and what is considered to be how to receive happiness, and that is how that's going to be, and that's following the gospel plan as taught by the LDS Church. I got really involved in sports. I started to get older, and it was great to be a part of a team, and it changed the social groups I started to hang out with. I was grateful to be a music person where I could go to orchestra or go to choir, but also go to sports and play football afterwards, or track and field. And I felt like I always got along with multiple different groups, and felt very blessed with those different opportunities that I had growing up as an adolescent into my teenage years and into my adulthood. And I didn't know that it would set me up for the opportunities later on in life as I got to associate with different people and see people for how I believe people are meant to be. I felt, as I was growing up in the church, I always felt like, and I knew that we're taught to love thy brother, and to be able to see them as Jesus sees them, and charity, and be able to, not judge. But there was also these moments where I felt like, when I started to understand, oh, well, that person's different, we need to make sure that we, do what we need to do, being to protect what we know is true and to not be influenced. I remember I had a really good friend in high school use the phrase, well, be careful because when you lay down with the dogs, you're going to get fleas. And I always held on to that and thought, okay, well, I better make sure that while I love my fellow men, I need to make sure that I don't get fleas by doing something or being with people that I shouldn't associate with. And I think my brain then started to put people into groups as far as where one person's associated and where's another. And I then started to understand as I got older, sometimes I had these feelings for other people, and I thought, well, no, I shouldn't have those kind of feelings. That's not right. And then as I started to identify, and you see on TV gay activist people, and I realized, well, those people are gay, and I don't want to be like that. I can't be like that. That's not me. I'm everything else. I'm a member of the church, and I do sports, and I'm active, and I love to be outdoors, and oh, that's not good. As I got older, I remember as I watched my parents go through all they went through, I felt like I knew what helped our family so much was everything, being members of the church and being active and being involved. And I knew that, okay, well, I needed to then be this certain way. And so I stayed active in the church. It was the best thing and the only thing that I knew how to do. I was an EFY counselor as I got older, and was an EFI counselor for 5 summers, and I loved showing how fun and active and the good things you can have from being involved in the church. And those were great moments, and I knew that I needed to find somebody to marry and find somebody to date. And I was always a very social person and interacting with the different groups. But everything about starting to get older and trying to date just became so much more exhausting. And I realized I was getting older and older and couldn't find anybody to marry or anybody to date. And I wanted so badly to figure out what this all meant. And I was going to the temple for a period of 6 months every week. And I was diligent, and I would just go, and I wouldn't always do a full endowment ceremony, but would just go sit in the chapel or go do initiatories or go do something else, but just be and put myself in that space. But about halfway through that time period, and maybe even closer into 4 or 5 months, there was just a time I remember I felt like I would feel nothing. And I didn't understand why, because I knew what the Spirit felt like in my life, and I knew those moments of peace and happiness and inspiration that the Spirit brought to me. And I'd sit in there in the temple and feel nothing, and I felt like, wait, this isn't how it's supposed to be. This isn't what I was told my whole life, and I feel like I was trying to do what was right. But somewhere along the lines, I thought, I need to figure out what these feelings are. So I started dating, I started meeting other people, and of course I was so nervous and cautious in the beginning because I thought, what if somebody knows, and then I'd have fleas. And but I realized as I started to meet people that they were just like me, and they had stories just like me, and they were trying to stay afloat on a sea of emotion and waves of hardships and everything that goes on, and that they had hardships and I had hardships, and we experienced different things, and you start to talk and you hear people's stories, and I realized, wait a second, that resonates inside me. And as I started to meet more people and I started to see them as I felt like I was told my Savior sees these people as other brothers and sisters who have hearts, who have feelings and emotions, and understand I'm everything that they are, and I'm everything somebody else is. And there was so much of seeing somebody for who they are. And that inspiration, that peace and happiness, that everything that I believed the Spirit was, came back into my life in a new way that I couldn't quite understand, because I felt like I was doing things that I was told my whole life, that if I did these things, the Spirit will leave you. But it wasn't true. I had great moments of happiness and great moments of peace, felt inspired. And all of a sudden I came into a place of light again, where I felt happy. However, the weight of then understanding what this could potentially mean, the conversation that I would maybe need to have with my family, that weight also became crushing, and I didn't know what best to do with it. But I knew that I wanted to be authentic, and I wanted to be real, and I wanted to be able to say that I'm doing this because this is who I am, and not because this is how I'm influenced, or this is how I just feel like, Mom and Dad, you want me to be. And when I told my parents, it was a hard conversation. It was a very hard conversation, and I felt like, but I was honest, and I let them express back to me what they felt like they needed to express. But the love of my parents and the love of my family means so much to me that I know that that's an area that we tread lightly and we have conversations when we can. And it's a constant battle to work through where we both feel most comfortable. One day my mom called me though, and there in the beginning after I shortly told her, and she broke down and she says, "Cole, you will never be happy." And she said, "You can't have true happiness. And that this life is just, how could you ever really be happy? And look at what the church teaches, and you know this, that the church is the one way of happiness." And I looked at her, and I think it was one of those few moments where I was not trying to, shove a pie back in her face, but I just said, "Mom, but because we were members of the church, was our life all that happy? Was our life all that perfect?" And I said, "We've, as a family, experienced some true struggles and some true hardships, some physical things that have happened that put my parents in bad situations and live daily in pain." And I said, that happens to everybody, but are we not each have to then choose how we are most happy? And I think at that moment was a fork in the road of how my parents started to see how I lived my life. If I could look at myself now, and if I told myself that I could be as happy and as at peace as I am now, 5 years ago, I never would have believed it. I would have never thought that would have been possible. But I'm at a stage that I finally feel more peace, authentic, real, and realize that I am still everything that I ever was. But I'm also gay and I'm happy in that life, and I believe that my happiness is more based on my decision than ever before. And that's something that if I could ever go back and say that again to myself as a kid and realize you can be who you are, you can find peace and happiness in everyday living, and it doesn't just affect between what religious group you're a part of, between who you associate with, but find that peace and happiness that means something to you and where you want to be. See people for how the Savior sees them as far as other children and other people who just are trying to create and experience this life as they all feel like they need to. I feel like I've done that for myself. I feel like it's something that I still will always work towards and strive to do. But I know it's possible, and the peace that I now feel gives me such optimism to know that I can still do and be and have anything I ever want. And I'm at peace.